Alrighty, guys, we are live. Sometimes I just got to hit the "Let's go live" button. You're never really as prepared as you want to be, but we do have a lot to go over today. We are going to dive right into the leaked defense memorandum. Now we're going to make this I don't know how many parts, but we're going to get through that entire memorandum. We know that that's their entire defense strategy, so I think we should get acquainted with it, because I'm sure you can expect to be hearing this all year long. Hence the title of today's live stream. So I pre-recorded the first 20 pages of the memorandum, and I pulled a lot of supporting information. We'll be looking at Fency, Murphy, and Click. We'll be looking at the Shane Meehan debacle, and then we'll look into the introduction from the memorandum into the Odinism theory and angle, and then we'll talk about it. Good to see you, Julianne. Frank, Caricature, Metal Mama. In regards to your question, yeah, we pretty much let folks, as a mod, I would say let folks get away with pretty much anything but being downright nasty. So if it's an opposing opinion, they're allowed to do that. But if you see blatant trolling, you can even put a warning out there and tag me in it. That way I can kind of see what's going on. Thank you, Frank. Good evening, sleuthers. Justice for Abby and Libby. Thank you, Frank. So there's going to be a lot of talk about Brad Holder, of course. That's their number one suspect they want us looking at, other than Richard Allen. Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall and Elvis Fields. And is it Johnny Messer? So I guess we better get acquainted. What's up, Big Bird? Patricia, good to see you. Doris, Devoted. Yeah, I got to slow it down, or I'll just never get to the comments. It's ridiculous. Thanks, Farmer. Yeah, that's it. Just don't be a dick, and anything really goes. Don't be accusing the family. Things like that. What's up? Anything I like? Happy Friday, Stephanie. What's going on, Lynn? It was a structure issue, so I hope she fixes the structure. I kind of, I don't know. I really don't want this to be something that comes off as like a back and forth. But in my opinion, I thought what they did was really wrong. But like I always say, like, what do I know, right? They made a great argument in the Supreme Court. I'm happy to see things get back on track. I would hate for her to reignite that fire. What's up, V. Marie? Grace, what's going on? Olivia, Connie Hill, how are you? Justice is coming soon. Hopefully we will get Richard Allen to plea out. and we won't have to worry about it. But as of right now, we're on track for a long road of Odinism. So we're going to do our best to bring you all the information we can surrounding this case and what to expect from this defense strategy. What's up, Violet? Louise? Yeah, I had a great week. Hopefully you had a great week. So the memorandum in support of the accused motion for a Frank's hearing. So they're trying to say that the prosecution ignored basically the most compelling evidence in order to pursue Richard Allen, which they cannot do that if that's true. So they got to prove that the Odinism is much more compelling than everything that's going on with Richard Allen. But for me, I don't even see how that excludes Richard Allen. Let's say everything is what they're saying in the memorandum, or even 50% of what they're saying is true. I don't see how that excludes Richard Allen. I mean, we know he was at the trails that day. Don't know for a fact what's going on with the unspent bullet, but if they can prove that, which they very well could, with the ballistic fingerprint, I mean, how does that not tie him in with the Odinist? In the memorandum, it talks about there's nothing in his record showing that. Well, he's had 6 years to erase that, and all the people that you're accusing, don't you think they would have erased it? Maybe not. Maybe they're powerful friends, right? Nick McClelland and the Freemasons. So you got Andrew J. Baldwin back and Bradley A. Rosie. And this is their strategy. So I've pre-recorded the first 20-something pages. I don't know. It's about 30 minutes worth of reading. And we'll stop and go. What's going on, Ruckus? Tambi, hello. Devoted says, I can't believe they're okay with accusing innocent people with the crime. Well, when they read that, they're thinking the same thing about folks like us, right? People who are kind of like pro-prosecution. And I'm not trying to throw Richard Allen under the bus. I'm just trying to support the prosecution, trying to support this process. Now, if they're lying, that's a big deal, right? If they're fabricating a probable cause affidavits and stretching timelines and lying about information, that's a big deal. But that hasn't been proven to me yet. That's the argument. But I'm still trying to support them because they're telling the folks of Indiana they got a guy. They got their guy, right? Or one of them. I want to support that. Now, it's the court's duty to make sure that he doesn't have his rights violated. It's not mine. What's up, Hiawatha? Glad to have you, Grace. What's up, Lisa? Frank says, hell, I got an email being accused of being an RA supporter. Damn. That shows you how much people actually like watch us. They just hear your name in like a Discord. What's up, Teresa? Shout out to Indiana. Thank you. I appreciate that. Good to see you, Nedra. 517 Kells, what up? Sparky. There's so much evidence, some circumstantial, but still so much points to him. Well, it's the timeline for me. So hopefully they are being honest about that. And the unspent bullet. I mean, that's, people might call that junk science, but it's not. It's 100% not. And it really is the smoking gun, right? Or the unsmoking gun in this case, considering as it wasn't fired, just cycled through the gun. What's up, Icebox? She Warrior. V. Marie says prosecution just doubled down. They got to have something more, right? I don't know. I don't know if they do. I'm not even sure if they need more. And I'm still confused about the amended charges. It sounds like they don't even have to prove that he killed the girls, just that he's the bridge guy. And if you have 3 of those girls, maybe even all 4 of the witnesses pointing at Richard Allen, now that they know him and now that they've seen him, it could very well have triggered their memory or altered it even, for that matter. And they might point at him in that courtroom. If you got 4 people saying, well, that's the guy we saw, and that's the guy that was also in Libby's video. That's what they're trying to tell us in the affidavit. That's according to the prosecution, that these witnesses are going to be able to do that. Now, if they can put him on the trails heading towards that bridge as they're leaving, that's pretty much Richard Allen and Abby and Libby kind of moving at the same time in the same direction, going to the same place. And then them never being seen by anybody else since. You know, once they went to the bridge, there was one photo that proves that they were actually on the bridge. Then you have a witness who puts the suspect on the bridge. So, and then you have people coming and going from that point on. Nobody sees them since after that. That's it. So with that timeline, it's iffy, but then now you have the bullet. So to me, that just solidifies everything. They would have to convince me of that. So I think that's going to be a big part of the trial, right? If they make it to trial. Good to see you, Icebox. Devoted says, low-key, hope Nick tuned into Sleuth's show. I'm sure he keeps his ear to the streets. Who, the boss? Doesn't he have a license plate that says the boss? What are you up to, Nick? What are you doing with these amended charges? And why does the verbiage kind of speak as if you're still trying to stall? I hope you're ready to try this. I think he is. But today we're going to play devil's advocate, right? And we're going to call it all out. What's up, Nedra? What is Richard Allen's alibi? It's a good question. If you left the trails at 1:30, didn't arrive, apparently that's when he left, right? Around that time. And what were you doing? That's a good question, Nedra. What is his alibi? Because if you're still at the trails, nobody's seeing you. Awfully suspicious. Oh, thanks a lot, Joey, for the super sticker. I appreciate you. Thanks. What is up, Truffles? I would have hoped that the legal profession would have higher standards than they appear to have. And that's why we have systems in place, right? We can't all just have it our way every time. And I definitely got it wrong because after hearing the arguments the other day during the Indiana Supreme Court hearing, I was ready for them to come back. I was hoping Gold would stay, they would come back, and we can get going again. But I just don't believe that Richard Allen wants a speedy trial. I just don't believe it. And all these sneaky strategies like holding onto the paperwork and not filing for a speedy trial until the very last minute. So these sneaky lawyer games, right? So you had the defense playing that game, and then you had the prosecution playing another game where they hadn't handed over all of the discovery. So they were all going to wait to the last minute so that they didn't know what the next was going to do, what the other hand was going to do. So a lot of that strategy did get exposed. And I'm not sure what's next. I feel like Richard Allen should be able to go right into because before all the shenanigans happened, I think he had some time to file, like 2 weeks or 2 months or something. I'm not exactly sure what it was. So he may be able to get that done. They still haven't addressed the Franks hearing search warrant. So who knows what will happen. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. Pretty much caught up on the chat. This is going to be the leaked defense memorandum, about the first 20 pages or so. All right, just bear with me. I just realized there's no visuals. You guys wanted to sit here and look at me while we listen to the memorandum. So I'm going to put this up here. Okay, let me know if you guys can hear this. Table of contents, 8 things to know. Overwhelming evidence in this case supports the following. Members of a pagan Norse religion called Odinism, hijacked by white nationalists, ritualistically sacrificed Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Very early on, those in charge of the Delphi murder investigation claimed that they consulted with the Purdue professor concerning what resembled. So I want to make sure you guys can hear that okay. And let's go to a super chat here. Thanks for all your work, Sleuth, and for a great channel. Keep up the awesome work. Thank you, Brown Skittle. I appreciate that. Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Jerry. What's up, Jerry? Farmer, V, Devoted. I appreciate you guys for the feedback. Possible Odinism signatures left behind at the crime scene. After the Purdue professor proclaimed, according to the state trooper Jerry Holman, that it was not Odinism or any type of cult worshiping or any type of group that would have conducted the crime, the Odinism angle was essentially abandoned. However, as of September 7th, 2023, the leaders of the Delphi investigation team, 1, claim that they can't identify who this purported professor was. 2, have provided no reports from the purported professor, and I have further indicated they may never be able to figure out who this professor is. Based in large part upon the mystery Purdue professor's opinion, the Delphi investigative leadership claimed that it essentially abandoned considering Odinite involvement in the murders. And then the years passed. 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22. Thankfully, during those passing years, law enforcement officers Kevin Murphy,
What's up, Jamie?
Greg Fency, and Todd Click continued to pursue the truth. Because of their curiosity, investigative efforts, the evidence establishing the names of the likely murdering members of this Odinite cult became known to the Delphi investigative leadership no later than February 2018. Due to either incompetence or a concerted intentionality, those in charge of the investigation refused to arrest or even properly investigate these obvious suspects. On May 1st, 2023, the state of Indiana, by way of prosecutor Nick McClelland, received a letter from former Rushville Assistant Police Chief Todd Click, now retired. As stated in the previous paragraph, Click, Murphy, and Fency were 3 of the law enforcement officers who worked on the Delphi murder case, particularly focused on the Odinite angle as it intersected with suspects in Rushville, Indiana. After reading Richard Allen's probable cause affidavit, real quick, let's take a look at some of these folks here. Okay, now they talk about Detective Greg Fency. Well, he was recently murdered by Shane Meehan. Let's take a look at that here.
Well, what we learned from the charging information filed by the U.S. Attorney in Indianapolis, that's about 60 miles east of here, is that Meehan allegedly came up onto this property. You see it behind me. This is just off of downtown Terre Haute, where the FBI has its offices, flung a Molotov cocktail onto the property. The officer then came out, confronted him. The officer was shot once, at least. Then the officer exchanged gunfire with Meehan. That brought out a second FBI agent who also exchanged gunfire with Meehan. Meehan was wounded twice and drove himself to Terre Haute Regional Hospital, where he was found. He's under treatment there, and his truck was seized and was searched for evidence. As of 10 o'clock this morning, during that press conference, I had a chance to ask the special agent in charge whether or not they had opportunity yet to speak with Meehan. And at that time, Meehan was still under the influence and recovering from his wounds. So even though he's been charged, he has not had his initial hearing in court, and he won't have that initial hearing at least until he recovers and is well enough to make an appearance. In the meantime, I was also out in Meehan's neighborhood this afternoon, and I spoke with a friend of a family member. I was able to take a look at that house and see the evidence of the FBI search and the front door, which had been taken off that house. And I also spoke with a neighbor who said that he watched the FBI search that property. He described Meehan to me as a former Bureau of Prisons employee at the Terre Haute Penitentiary.
Okay, did you hear that? So that's kind of a connection there. This guy working for the prison system. I think he was a correction officer. Corrections.
The federal penitentiary here in Terre Haute, and also said that he had a gruff demeanor. Meehan was an unsuccessful candidate in running for the mayor of Terre Haute back in 2019.
You know, Ross, I find it very interesting that all of this newest information, the suspect and the officer himself, was all released through court documents. Are we expecting to hear from local officials down on the ground in a newer press conference with the newest information that we have now?
There's no new information that is coming out from the officials now. As a matter of fact, this morning they were deferring to the court documents, and being the FBI, they tend to be cautious about that. The Terre Haute Police Department, even though it was their officer, deferred to the FBI since the detective was assigned to the FBI task force, and since it was an FBI agent who eventually engaged Meehan on FBI property and wounded him. That's why this is a federal investigation, and Meehan has been charged in the death of a federal agent, that is a local police officer who has been deputized by the FBI. And behind me, you can still see there is still some evidence collection going on in the parking lot at this location. And that has brought FBI agents from all across the country, including the FBI's headquarters laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, to Indiana to search for evidence in this case.
So I guess you could make the case that it was somehow targeted. Maybe he lured him out specifically and was targeting him, but I think he shot another officer. Didn't seem like he was targeting him. So I don't know what was going on with that. Oh, let's take a closer look at Shane Meehan. He's the person who killed Detective Greg Fency. And this was before, a few years prior to that murder, he was running for mayor.
Local election headquarters.
The next candidate filed to run as an independent on July 3rd, a little late in the election season. One big push from Shane Meehan is safety and structural updates to be.
Yeah, this guy doesn't seem like an Odinite. I looked at all his tattoos. He has an open Facebook. None of his friends have any of those weird Odinism Facebooks with the hammer and all of that we've been seeing a lot of lately. So I didn't see any of that, but he is a corrections officer. And we hear that from the defense team that some of the correctional officers that were coming in contact with Richard Allen were part of the Odinite cult and threatening him or whatever. So I think they're trying to make that correlation there. Right. You have a guy who works as a corrections officer and he murders somebody who's working and breaking this case wide open as far as the Odinism angle, right? And then you have guards threatening Richard Allen's life.
County schools.
Meehan is a father of three. He says that he's never had a role in politics, and his run for mayor is to show the community that it can be done.
Shane Meehan has lived in Terre Haute his entire life. The 42-year-old retired from the Terre Haute Federal Penitentiary and now works at UPS. But he hopes his next career jump will be Terre Haute mayor.
A lot of people that when I was out talking to them, they said, dude, there's no prayer unless you've been part of the political system in order to be able to do anything or make any kind of change. So I'm wanting to show them that it can be done if you're willing to put the time into it.
Meehan is a West Vigo graduate, but showed no bias when choosing a spot for us to talk. We met in front of South Vigo High School. He says schools are one of the most important topics in his campaign and one of the biggest challenges.
Let me pause real quick and go to this question from DP. Sleuth, I have a question. If Delphi police are corrupt, and that I don't know, I'm pretty sure the majority of police forces have some kind of corruption going on. Why not just say after Ron Logan died, evidence has come to light that points to him? Who is going to pick a random guy like Richard Allen and charge him? Well, if you were coming up with a strategy to frame somebody, maybe you could go to the beginning of the case and find out about somebody that nobody's really talking about that may have come forward. And then you could break into his house, swap the bullet from his home with the bullet that's in evidence. Boom, there you go. But that's a huge crime. Bold statement.
Terre Haute faces.
Structurally, teachers, public safety.
He says
What's up,
gun
Zero?
violence in schools around the nation puts our youth in jeopardy.
I think a lot of it has to do with the kids and what happens at home, you know, and everything else going on around them. Cause a lot of pressure, and a lot of things are happening that shouldn't be happening.
When it comes to how the city should intervene, implementing a protection policy wouldn't be his first choice.
I think a lot of it would be talking to the kids, getting out and talking to them, finding out what's going on with them.
Meehan says when he was canvassing neighborhoods, getting his petition signed, he heard community concerns like taxes and transparency.
I'd like to see be able to balance a budget while cutting taxes, spending on what we have to have in order to move the city forward.
As far as taxpayers getting their money's worth,
Public safety's doing pretty good right now. I would say that's doing real well right now. The infrastructure's doing pretty good in certain areas, you know, especially around college. Everything.
That's a good question, Lisa. This guy apparently was charged with something just before he snapped. And I'm not sure what it was. I didn't have an opportunity. I was running out of time. That's a little bit on Shane Meehan. This is a little bit more on Greg Fency here.
Coverage on yesterday's shooting that killed Detective Greg Fency. News 10's Blake Dahlier is live at the Vigo County Courthouse. He's going to explain a little bit more about who Detective Fency was. Blake.
Susan, it's been about 24 hours since that deadly shooting that killed Detective Greg Fency. Now, that happened just across the street from where I'm standing right now, and Tucker White showed you that just a moment ago. Now, I went to the FBI press conference a couple hours ago, and I heard a little bit more about Fency's life and his career. News 10 had often talked to Fency. As you can see, this is some old video of him speaking with us. Fency worked 30 years with the Terre Haute Police Department. He's been a task force officer with the FBI since 2010. He also trained officers on how to handle matters like drugs, violent crime, and human trafficking. Risk assessments were also a significant part of Fency's job. Police tell us Fency was, quote, the guy we'd turn to. His 30 years on the police force was one the community won't soon forget.
You'll not meet a finer person. You don't spend 30 years in this profession without being dedicated. And he was absolutely dedicated.
As you can tell, just a very somber day, understandably so, within the Terre Haute Police Department. Now, we'll have their full reaction, as well as reaction from FBI agent Paul Keenan later, coming up at 6 o'clock. For now, reporting live in Terre Haute, Blake Dahlier.
Okay. Here's Todd Click. We'll read a statement from Todd Click, too, after the memorandum was leaked.
Rush 106 80 miles north. $67,483. 67483. Just like to thank the citizens of Rushville and Rush County for allowing me to protect them for the last 20 years. 1042 for the final time.
All right. So he's basically signing off, getting ready to retire. After the memorandum was leaked, This is what he had to say about it. He said, "There are two things that I would like to clear up immediately, though. Detective Fency and Detective Murphy were not Rushville cops. Detective Fency was a detective from... Hold on. This one's all... I like copied and paste, but it's all scrambled. Hold on a second. I still have it up, though. All right. He says here, and I quote, "No one in law enforcement believes Abby and Libby were killed in a ritual sacrifice. That is the defense twisting facts for sensationalism." So that's what he had to say about it. So the memorandum, there's just a lot of inconsistencies and sometimes just flat out lies. It's hard to know what you can rely on, what bits and pieces of information are correct. Because anything that we can get our hands on has been proven false. Click became concerned that the information contained in Richard Allen's affidavit pointed the finger at Richard Allen was far less compelling than the totality of the information that Detective Fency, Detective Murphy, and Officer Click had accumulated during the Rushville portion of the investigation. The information that Murphy, Fency, and Click had gathered during their investigation connected men who practiced Odinism in or near Delphi with another group of men who lived in Rushville, and then connected both groups of men to the murders. Click was concerned that for some reason the leadership of the investigative team had failed to share with Prosecutor McClelland the evidence gathered by Click, Fency, and Murphy. Click's concerns left him to seek out a lawyer to assist him in the drafting of a letter. This letter was then sent to McClelland. This letter was not provided to the defense until after it was obvious from the last round of depositions that the defense, who had doggedly pursued witnesses as far away as Georgia, would certainly be talking with Todd Click. McClelland had this letter in his possession for over 4 months before turning it over to the defense. There can be no mistaking that this letter is exculpatory in nature and could have been used by the defense as it prepared for upcoming depositions. However, it is apparent that McClelland only offered up the letter after it was obvious. Footnote: find attached certified mail receipt showing that the Carroll County's prosecutor office received the letter on May 1st, 2023, marked as Exhibit 1. Find attached the affidavit of Todd Click marked as Exhibit 2. A copy of the letter is attached here and marked as Exhibit 3. End of footnote. That the defense team would soon be learning of the letter's existence. In other words, the defense team would obviously be meeting with or deposing Click in the next few weeks. At that time, Click most certainly would then reveal to the defense that in April 2023, he, Click, had sent a letter containing exculpatory information to McClelland. At this point, McClelland had two distinct choices. One, sit on the exculpatory evidence, hoping that the defense team would refocus its efforts on another angle of the investigation. Or two, disclose the exculpatory evidence, claiming that the contents of the letter were overlooked. Thanks, Brad. In the volume of discovery. He chose the latter. Unfortunately for the state, neither approach explains away the fact that Click specifically directed the letter to McClelland himself, and further, Click was so determined to ensure that his information was consumed by McClelland that he directed the information directly to McClelland. Let's go to V. Marie. It says, while running for mayor, he advocated for public safety and gun violence. What the fuck? I said the exact same thing. I was like, you're running under gun safety? Via certified mail. The letter is stamped, received May 1st, 2023. Carroll County prosecutor. Click's report landed at Ground Zero, a prosecutor's office with no more than 2 full-time prosecutors and a handful of full-time staff members at best. Could this exculpatory evidence have been completely overlooked? Not plausible. Not only did the prosecution withhold that letter from the defense, but law enforcement also withheld several other exculpatory pieces of evidence. including an 85-page compilation of reports by Click prepared in 2019 and several videos containing statements that support the defense's theory of Richard Allen's innocence. This 85-page report detailed the investigative work performed by Click, Fency, and Murphy. Oh, let's go to the chat real quick. Truffle says too much conspiracy theories. That reminded me of a comment that you put in recently, Brown Skittle, about you feeling the same way about the Odinism theory. You feel the same way about other people being involved, like with the Anthony shots. And I think that's accurate. Honestly, you should be on the lone wolf if you're following the evidence. But if you're obsessed like me and you're looking at everything, my opinion is you would see that there's others involved and that they will bring the Anthony shots into this. But that's just my opinion. But the facts aren't really pointing in that direction, to be honest. So it's very similar to the Odinism theory. So that was a very good point, Brown Skittle. And others, including the FBI. According to the summary of Click's investigation he attached with his letter, the Behavioral Analysis Unit, BAU, of the FBI determined that the individuals responsible for the homicides were involved in Nordic beliefs. This was news to the defense, as no member of the Unified Command in charge of the investigation revealed this information to the defense during recent depositions. This includes Trooper Holman, who told the defense that he didn't remember the FBI's BAU unit determined one way or the other whether those with Nordic beliefs had been involved in the murders. At least up until the time of this filing, the prosecution has provided no evidence whatsoever of the finding of the FBI's BAU unit concerning involvement of Odinists in the murders. None. The letter that Click sent to McClellan was the first that the defense has heard that the FBI actually believed that Odinists were likely involved. In other words, the report contained exculpatory evidence that Unified Command concealed from the defense. This information was and is crucial for Richard Allen's defense. Some of this exculpatory evidence in the form of videos was finally released to the defense on September 8, 2023, over 9 months after defense counsel entered their appearance. The defense is still reviewing the September 8th evidence dump. In the brief time the defense has had to review this newly received evidence, it has found exculpatory evidence both in the videos the defense has watched and the documents that the defense has reviewed. While the prosecution has been holding on to this exculpatory evidence, Richard Allen has been living in hell. Lastly, the evidence will show that the week of August 28, 2023, Prosecutor McClellan and State Trooper Jerry Holman requested a meeting with Todd Click. By this time, the defense team had taken several depositions, including Holman, Leggett, and Lesenby, and the prosecution and Delphi investigative leadership now knew that for a while, the defense team had been aware of the Odinist evidence, at least the evidence that the prosecution turned over to the defense scattered throughout multiple hard drives and many flash drives. The prosecution had learned in early August that the defense had figured out the strong Odinist ties to the crimes, despite the apparent attempts the prosecution, Leggett, and Holman to hide this exculpatory information from the defense. Wanting to allay his fears that an innocent man was sitting in Westville, Click agreed to attend the meeting with Holman, hoping that he would be learning that evidence didn't. All right, let's go to the chat real quick. DP says, yes, they don't look like runes to me either. Looks like he was just staging to go throw off the cops. I mean, I just don't know. It's just so strange. I mean, I can't get over the fact that there was like redressing of Abby and all that stuff. To me, that's like a personal connection. Very strange. This is a question for everybody watching. Why wouldn't a lone wolf just leave them there? You committed the murder, leave them there, and get the hell out of there. Well, I think I know why. Because there was people on the bridge They had crossed all the way to the south end of the bridge right around 3:45-ish. And we know 10 minutes from that very moment, he's already on 300, muddy and bloody or muddy or whatever. We know that the older sketch is from the person seen walking on 300 around 4 o'clock. Okay, so he could have very well have been spooked by those folks. They were being loud. There was the arguing couple, and then I think 1 to 2 other girls that were running up and down that bridge. So if he would have just left them there, he would have ran the risk of them finding them, alerting law enforcement right away, and then he would have gone to jail that night, right? But instead, he hid the girls, staged the crime scene, most likely just covered them in sticks, right? We saw the video of Steve from True Crime Web, what he put together. I mean, it took like less than 8 minutes to completely cover the girls and then get out of the area. So I feel like maybe he was doing the redressing stuff and he hadn't gotten that all completed. And that's when he started hearing people looking for the girls and just folks out on the bridge. And I think that's when he quickly covered them with sticks and made his way out of there. Violet says, I believe Richard Allen staged the crime scene to appear to look like something it is not. So that means that you think this does look like ruins, or that somebody was trying to make it look like ruins. We've spoken with a few experts about this. Our good friend Jesse, he's an expert on this. And he told us that it does kind of look like a poor effort to kind of mimic ruin. So that made me think about maybe even a teenager, or somebody who's trying to stage the crime scene to make it look like it's something that it's not. And we know Richard Allen's the one that keeps talking about Odinite guards threatening him and his family. Like, he's the one that's pushing that. This is his strategy. This isn't Baldwin and Rosie's strategy. This is his strategy. And we know that because the new defense team came in and they went and took the same direction. Brown Skittle, they don't look like ruins to me either. They look like chaos, the work of someone under stress trying to cover up their crime. It's not uniformed, it's chaotic. Yeah, and it bought him an entire day, right? It bought him an entire day. He came up with a better plan, or somebody helped him. You know, he came home and maybe his family was like, what the hell did you do? And he tells her, well, we got to do this, this, and that, you know, or they had no clue and he had time to think, like, I better be proactive about this. You know, I didn't leave any trace. I got to be proactive. I'll come forward because I know those girls saw me. I know that lady saw me. And eventually I'm going to look very guilty for not coming forward. So him hiding, for him staging and moving and doing all of that bought him a day. Coming forward bought him 6 years. Now, the Odinism stuff is what we get with 6 years of Richard Allen coming up with the plan, in my opinion. Big Worm says, this isn't the only ritual sacrifice recently. Just look at Kobe Bryant's death the day before LeBron James beat his scoring record. Oh, my goodness. You're trolling now, buddy. They were attempting to point to Odinus or something of the sort. Anything I like. Was there a conclusion to that report? No, but I think it is. I think the defense team is holding on to it. I don't know if it's the same report as the Odin report. Sensei. Strike hard, strike first.
We do not train to be merciful here. Mercy is for the weak. Here, on the street, in competition.
Good to see you, Sensei. Grayman says they don't represent people of this religion. Yeah, a lot of people got offended by it all. They didn't like the white nationalist part of it all. The hijacking. So the thing is, a lot of folks practice Odinism, or what would you call it, Norse paganism. So they might be wearing Odin patches or have a ruin tattoo or something like that, not be part of some kind of racist organization. So I think they're folks that are just practicing it as a freedom of religion. They're not liking this very much right now. They seem to be very upset by all of it. Fact exists linking Richard Allen to the murders. Click hopes were dashed. Paragraph 17 of Click's affidavit. Not only did Carroll County Sheriff's Tony Liggett fail to include all this Odinite information in his October 13th, 2022 affidavit for a search warrant, and not only did McClellan and the Unified Command withhold exculpatory evidence, Liggett also concealed damaging witness statements that devastate Liggett's timeline. A timeline Liggett needed to be true in order to place Richard Allen at the trail when Abby and Libby were abducted. Additionally, Liggett lied in his affidavit about the statement of another key witness, further devastating Liggett's timeline. Richard Allen has zero connections to any pagan cult or pagan cultists. Right on time with Hiawatha's comment. Hiawatha says Allen was an Odinist fanboy. Well, according to the defense team and according to this memorandum, quite the contrary. So if you have anything that shows Richard Allen is into this Odinism stuff, please send it to me. I'd appreciate that. And furthermore, no forensic evidence such as DNA or electronic evidence links Richard Allen to the girls or to the crime scene, i.e., he is a completely innocent man. Most of the evidence backing these assertions was found scattered over no less than 10 hard drives and several flash drives provided by the prosecution, meaning that the defense is not making wild accusations, but rather primarily relying facts and information that is backed up by the prosecution's own discovery. See, that doesn't make sense. So basically they're saying they stumbled upon this, right? Here they're saying they stumbled upon it with their own investigating and going through the discovery. And then midway through this, they talk about the first time they heard the term Odinism, and that was from Richard Allen himself. So, I mean, I just feel like the prosecution's going to pick this apart if a bunch of YouTubers are just going through and verifying bits and pieces of information and not one of the pieces of verifiable information is accurate. That's not good. Even discovery that prosecution just provided to the defense as late as September 8th, 2023. Not coincidentally, members, Odinists of this same pagan cult are employed as corrections officers for the Indiana Department of Corrections at Westville Correctional Facility. It is inside the cold concrete walls of the maximum security unit of this dilapidated reformatory that Richard Allen is being threatened, intimidated, and mentally abused. Throughout this document, references are made to the Unified Command. Essentially, the Unified Command was the leadership of the Delphi murder investigation, according to Tony Liggett, Carroll County Sheriff and member of the Unified Command when the investigation began. Unified Command consisted of law enforcement from a variety of entities, local, state, and federal. Unified Command were overseers of the entire investigative operation. According to Liggett, the members of the Unified Command are and were from Carroll County, Tony Liggett and Kevin Hammond; from State Police, Jerry Holman, Jay Harper, and Dave Vito; from the FBI, Rich Davies. Table of Oh, sorry about that. I was muted. All right, so that was a part one. Pretty much the overview on the 3 officers and the FBI agent who was recently killed, who were kind of pursuing the Odinism angle. And now we're going to move on to the next part of the memorandum that kind of dives into the Brad Holder stuff. And I think, did we touch on the Jeffrey Turco? Let me pull him up. So this is the professor that was working with those investigators and agreed, you know, he's the one that said, hey, look, guys, I do believe that whoever created this crime scene studied Norse paganism. According to the defense team, that is. Right? Now, everything that we've been able to verify with that's been said in that defense memo has been false. Every single piece. So I don't know why this would be any different. But it'd be interesting to hear from Mr. Turco, not only for his expertise, but to hear his opinion on that matter. Maybe he'll make a comment or something. All right. Odinism, Odinites, and runes. Odinism is the pagan religion referenced above, and its followers are called Odinites. Odinists are enamored of Viking Nordic culture. Evidence supports that at the crime scene, the murdering Odinites left behind obvious signature symbols in the form of runes. These runes were formed with sticks fashioned with tree branches and painted using the blood of Liberty German. Sticks and tree branches were deliberately, carefully, and proficiently placed on each girl in a certain arrangement mimicking certain runes. At least one of the branches appeared to have its end cut off cleanly by some type of tool like an electric saw, providing proof of a preconceived plan. Additionally, the blood of Liberty German was used as the paint to mark a tree with a rune that looks similar to the letter F. With the simple Google search, these runes would be identifiable as one of the many calling cards of this pagan religious cult. Yet law enforcement in charge of the Delphi investigation seemingly and quickly abandoned the obvious correlation between the crime scene and Odinism, despite an obscene amount of evidence linking Odinism to the crime scene. Footnote. Although State Police Superintendent Doug Carter pulled the plug and kicked the FBI off the Delphi murder case around 2021 over some conflict, according to Jerry Holman. Interestingly, Tony Leggett, who was deposed before Holman, claimed under oath that Doug Carter was not involved in making decisions for the case. Furthermore, let's go to the chat real quick. Brown Skittle says, I think he tried to cover them because he has a shred of conscience left. You might be right. He might have been in the process of redressing both of Abby and Libby. Only got as far as he did, was interrupted. We know that Libby's father was out there searching, yelling for her, and there was quite, I wouldn't call it a crowd. At least 3 folks were out on the bridge between like 3:05 and 3:45. So that had to have been some concern to Richard Allen. They couldn't see him. You can't see back there. But if they come down just like he did, then they definitely can. That's how they found the girls, was by going down there and seeing a shoe in the middle of the creek. So he may have well just been in the process of covering them up and exposing a bit of his personality and who he is, and might explain that comment by Doug Carter. So you might be right. You want me to close out the poll? All right, hold on. Or did you want me to do a new poll? Well, either way, I would have to do both. Okay, so the poll question was, what are your thoughts on the defense team's Odinism angle? 11% said we can play devil's advocate. That's pretty much what we're doing today. 17% said, what if, right? What if? You know, we're not experts. That's why we do our best to find the answers and speak with those that know what the hell they're talking about. 28%, it is the defense strategy, so learn it. Get familiarize yourself with it. But the majority, which is 45%, said won't matter after Richard Allen pleads out. And that's what I'm hoping for. Good to see you, Anthony. Welcome in. Devoted says, great show, great chat. Always enjoy a productive discussion. Me too, Devoted. Nedra says, so glad I don't have to be on a jury. I honestly think that the Odinist stuff is crap. Since when do Odinists sacrifice young girls? Well, this isn't just Odinist. They're trying to say this is some kind of hijacked fact of Odinism by dangerous racist cult members. Do Odins change clothes to other person? Yeah, I just don't know how they're going to explain that. Steven says Richard Allen acted alone. That is the most likely scenario. I just can't get past all the other stuff. It just seems so premeditated. He seems so motivated. He seems pissed off. Witnesses are telling us that they witnessed an angry man marching towards the bridge. Who was going to the bridge? The girls. What time did he apparently show up? At 1:30. What time did they leave at 1:30? If he's some kamikaze psycho killer, why not just attack the three young witnesses right then and there? He obviously has no plan, and I mean borderline suicidal, right? He's attacking two young girls in the broad daylight on a public trail. Why not kill them? And maybe he did stalk Betsy Blair, that's the witness who saw him out on the high bridge. So it's possible that he did stalk her somewhat. And her timeline is a little bit iffy too. I'm not comfortable with all of that. But it is possible she came to the bridge. They saw each other. She started walking back and he followed her out and maybe was planning on hurting her. And that's when he saw Abby and Libby come, and he just decided to kind of see what they were doing. And when they were out on the bridge and he can see that there's nobody out here, he could have just said, hey, let's do it. It could have been high, could have been tweaking. Who knows? Good to see you, Sharon. Oh, I remember that rumor. Farmer says possibly a hitchhiker picked up by a mystery man, a teen so taken by the productivity of the killer. He was impressed almost. Old ass rumor. Yeah, that was weird. I think the story was about somebody that did a live stream like the day of the murders or something that night and said they were picked up by a hitchhiker and he went and committed some brutal murder. And the person was so impressed by the fact that he was really old, or he didn't look capable of anything. But when he got down to it, he was very capable of committing a double homicide. That's old, Farmer. I haven't heard about that in a long time. I don't know if anybody ever found that live stream or what, but it was all over Reddit for a minute. Interesting that you brought that up. Brown Scale says, I think he was gone by 3 p.m. I think he heard people and crossed back over the river and stealthily made his way back down towards the car. Nope. He couldn't have gone on that bridge because, well, I mean, it's possible he would have had to do it before 3. And it's going to take, I think it's going to take a lot longer to accomplish what he did. I think it's going to take him about 30 minutes. But I think he was taking his time, honestly. I think he was panicked. He was letting himself calm down. He was feeling the remorse, panicking about getting in trouble, but also knowing that he's secluded, knowing that nobody's going to walk up to him at that very moment. So I think at a moment in time, he was taking his time. And then he started hearing people. Around 3:30, he should have been hearing Derek German calling for Abby. He would have heard the couple under the bridge. They went from under the bridge to join their friends on top of the bridge from 3:05 all the way to 3:50, 3:45, 3:50. And we know right around 3:50, he scurried on out of there. He was spotted on 300. And we watched Randy and a number of people walk from the crime scene up to the cemetery in like less than 6 minutes. So it doesn't take long. You just keep walking right up this little ravine, and 6 minutes later, you're out on the road. So if they're on the bridge making all this noise, you know, Cheyenne and the arguing couple and whoever this older gentleman is, I don't even know if that's McCain anymore, but there's a handful of people on the bridge right around that time. So 10 minutes after that, he's being spotted leaving the crime scene. So it makes sense that we see something like this, him trying to cover the girls. He couldn't finish dressing them the way he wanted to, so he's just going to cover them up with sticks, and hopefully he can get out of there without getting spotted or them being found right away. All right, let's get back to this. Looks like we have about 10 more minutes. Get claimed to be unaware that the FBI was even kicked out, let alone that any agency had actually kicked out the FBI from investigating the Delphi case. It is quite odd that the salient topic of these are from Brad Holder's Facebook around late 2016, before the murders. These are some of the photos he was taking. Doug Carter kicking the FBI off the Delphi case would never have been discussed between Leggett and Holman, who were working so closely with one another in unified command. If that can be believed, it would be quite perplexing. Merriam-Webster defines a rune as any of the characters of any of several alphabets used by the Germanic peoples from about the 3rd to the 13th centuries. Many runes look like the letter F, including a rune called Anzus, which among other things stands for Odin. End of footnote. And even in spite of powerful evidence linking specific Odinites in and around Indiana to the murders, Kind of looks like also, the court will learn in this affidavit for search warrant that Sheriff Leggett failed to inform Judge Diener that nothing, absolutely nothing, links Richard Allen to Odinism or any religious cult. Also, no forensics, such as DNA, no electronic data extracted from his computers or phones or from his social media links Richard Allen to the crime scene. Yeah, but don't forget he had 6 years to hide all of that. He had a 6-year head start on this little theory of his. Additionally, nothing links Richard Allen to any of the Odinite suspects. The same Odinite suspects that evidence strongly supports sacrificed Abby and Libby in some sort of pagan ritual. Richard Allen had nothing to do with this crime, but rather is an innocent man, a patsy for police, arrested 26 days before an election. Failure to pursue the Odinist links. I think so, Anthony. That's what I think. Law enforcement's failure to actively pursue the obvious links between the crime scene and Odinism is confounding. It is even more confounding when days and weeks after the murders, a particular Odinite from Logansport named Brad Holder posted on social media images mimicking the very ruins found at the crime scene. The crime scene unreleased and unknown to the general public, even to this day. Who was Brad Holder? He was an Odinite whose son Logan had been dating Abby. Brad Holder's social media posts seemingly taunted the very police that refused to fully investigate him. The defense believes that the court will be shocked at the number of clues or Easter eggs, both before and after the murders, that Holder openly posted on his Facebook page that pointed the finger to his involvement in the murders. Let's go to the chat real quick. Devoted says, and because our human brain sees patterns, people may see different things in the sticks, same as the BG video. We all see the world differently. Yeah, Paradolia. What's up, Tech Death? That's crazy. I don't think true Odinites, well, I don't think they like being called Odinites. That's another thing that we learned. Would leave it like that. It would be more precise. It would be very easy to make something that looks like an F, right? So why not do it? Why not do it? None of this is legible. If this is an F, what is all of this over here? Wouldn't this be like a T? And this would be connected right here. And you wouldn't have this down here. You wouldn't have this. It would just look like an F. For example, look what Brad Holder did. There's a clear F, right? Not quite sure what this is. This kind of looks like the crime scene a little bit. This one's not very legible. Torns. Member of the geocache. Big Worm. I suspect police said, let's pin this on some loser who has 0 friends, and they found Richard Allen. Yeah, they found out that he put a tip in early and that he was on the trails and nobody had really talked about it. And he kind of looked like the bridge guy, so let's pin it on him. You want to talk about a conspiracy theory? Try selling that to a jury. Yeah, it could be, Lisa. He could have been ashamed, showing some remorse. Sees through. What's up? Why would Odinist be threatening a guy who made a sacrifice to Odin? Grasping at straws, in my opinion. And also, if he had nothing to do with the crime, he would have no knowledge of Odinism, who was actually responsible for the murder, right? He wouldn't have any clue. So why would the killers or associates of the killers provide him with all of these details that they don't want revealed? Unless they just needed him to confess. They're like, if you don't confess, we're going to kill your family. Why would you do that at the risk of him not doing what you just said? Because obviously he didn't do what they said and his family is okay. It just doesn't seem believable. It's all so fantastical. All right, let's get going. We got running out of time here. However, a fact that is simply mind-blowing to the defense is that Brad Holder was never considered a suspect in the murders of Abby and Libby. State Trooper Jerry Holman, one of the law enforcement officers in charge of organizing and investigating the Delphi murders, claimed in his August 10th, 2023 deposition that Brad Holder was not only not really ever a suspect, police reports written near the time of the murders reveal that Jerry Holman is telling the truth. Brad Holder was cleared as a suspect quickly on March 16th, 2017. Anthony says, so were the girls' clothes wet or dry? From what I hear, they appear to be wet. Even the girl's hair. On March 1st, 2017, Tony Leggett stated in a report that there were no leads required concerning Brad Holder, meaning that it was not necessary for law enforcement to continue to look for leads related to Brad Holder. Leggett made that determination a mere 15 days after the girls were murdered. By March 16th, 2023, Unified Command member Kevin Hammond wrote that Brad Holder has been cleared. The girls hadn't been dead for 30 days, and Unified Command had already cleared Brad Holder as a suspect. Unified Command had already cleared Holder as a suspect within 30 days, knowing that Brad Holder's son dated Abby. Unified Command had already cleared Holder as a suspect within 30 days of the murders, although a simple review of Brad Holder's Facebook page would show that Brad Holder, was a proud Odinite that had an absolute obsession and fascination with runes. Police knew or had to know that runes had been left at the crime scene. Additionally, Unified Command had already cleared Holder as a suspect in spite of the facts that runes found on Brad Holder's Facebook pages mimicked runes found at the crime scene that had not been released to the public. The investigation had barely begun, but the Unified Command had already cleared the very man that any person with even a small amount of common sense or curiosity would believe was a strong candidate for being involved in the murder of the girls. For example, the court will also learn that the Unified Command was aware of a very disturbing image on Brad Holder's social media accounts that actually mimicked the crime scene. On April 12th, 2017, Trooper Joseph Ryan Winters received a phone call from a man in Georgia named Ryan Boucher, who had discovered disturbing images in Brad Holder's social media account. Having somehow learned that Brad Holder's son zero sound. Thank you, guys. Oh, wait, what? Wait, is there sound? Yes or no? Okay, I'm way behind anyway. I'm assuming you guys can hear me. What's up, Mark? Okay, thank you. Logan had dated Abby Williams. Mr. Boucher began reviewing Brad Holder's social media history. One of the images Boucher viewed on Brad Holder's social media account was an image of two women either dead or posed as if they were dead on the ground and what appeared to be a forest. Both women had tree limbs and sticks arranged on their bodies. One of the women had her arm stretched out above her head, similar to the way that Libby's arm was stretched above her head. Both women were clothed, and the stick and tree branch formations on these girls was different than the stick and tree branch formation on Abby and Libby, but otherwise it bore a very eerie similarity. Yeah, and I wonder if this Boucher character actually had the crime scene photos, and that's why he thought that those images were very suspicious. Remember, there was a leak prior to the one that we've been seeing recently. So somebody else has had the crime scene photos for some time. I wonder if this Boucher character had access to those. And when he saw that Brad Holder had something very similar to the crime scene, he was able to point it out. To the murder scene in Delphi. Ryan Boucher had no knowledge of the actual crime scene. However, after reviewing Brad Holder's social media sites, Boucher was disturbed at that image, as well as other images that provided insight into Brad Holder's fascination with runes. Believing that the disturbing images may be something of interest to those investigating the Delphi murders, Mr. Boucher contacted Tobe Lesenby, who at the time was the sheriff of Carroll County. Lesenby quickly rebuffed Boucher, telling Boucher that Holder was not a suspect. Undeterred, Mr. Boucher contacted the state police, where he ended up talking to Trooper Joseph Ryan Winters. And another thing that kind of stands out is law enforcement and investigators rarely use the word cleared, right? So why are they clearing Brad Holder? Why are they using that word? It makes me feel like he presented an alibi or something. After their conversation, Winters memorialized the interaction and placed the images provided by Boucher into a Dropbox account. After creating the report, Winters then discussed his findings face-to-face with Jerry Holman of the Unified Command. The body of this memorandum will provide details of that interaction. In his report, Winters requests law enforcement to re-interview Brad Holder. The defense does not believe Unified Command ever followed up on Winters' requests. It should be noted that the disturbing images found by Boucher in Georgia and placed in a Dropbox by Winters were not and have still not been provided to the defense. In his recent deposition, Winters said that he had attempted to locate the images but was unable. However, because of potential importance of those images to Richard Allen's case, the defense teams located Boucher and then traveled to Georgia to meet with Boucher. Those images are now in the possession of Richard's defense team, who then provided those images to law enforcement. Again, those were important images that law enforcement failed to turn over to the defense. Instead, the defense located these images in Georgia and then turned them over to the very people who had the obligation to provide them to the defense. V says, he claims to have been at work, didn't he? I'm not sure. I am not sure, but they definitely are interested in his medical records. So I'm wondering if they pulled the toxicology or had him his urine tested. Maybe through, I mean, just him going to a hospital after the murders is telling in itself, but if they took his urine or if they took a urine sample, maybe he was high on something like meth or PCP or something that might explain all the weirdness, right? All the things that can't be explained. I feel like when mental health and drugs are involved, sometimes the perpetrator can't even explain it after the fact. Yeah, Farmer, this is a tough case. It's not going away. We're gonna take it head on here on this channel. We're gonna take it head on and we're gonna listen to what everybody has to say. And we're gonna go through each fact one by one. All right, this is almost finished up. Unified Command, which included Tony Leggett, who drafted the affidavit for search warrant, was fully aware of the mimicked crime scene on Brad Holder's social media. as well as other posts that mimic the exact runes found at the crime scene, but failed to do anything about it and failed to inform Judge Diener of this obvious suspect, Brad Holder, and all of the evidence that existed against Holder, making him a prime suspect. The court will learn in the body of this memorandum that Holder was connected to the crimes, the crime scene, and other men who had confessed to the crime. The evidence of those connections will be provided in the body of the memorandum, including copies of the images found on Holder's Facebook page at the time of the investigation, which links Holder to the crime scene, as well as the images found by Ryan Boucher that law enforcement has failed to turn over. Alrighty, that's going to do it for the memorandum for today. Eventually, I'm going to get that whole thing recorded for you this week. That way, you guys can just hit play when you can hear the whole thing. I only have 110 more pages to go. Or something like that. Here's some stuff from Brad Holder's Facebook, and apparently he has an alibi. And we know that they're trying to accuse Patrick Westfall, who on paper looks like a monster. I mean, he would be anybody's dream suspect. If they can put him at the trails, whoo. I mean, all you got to do is type in Patrick Westfall, and it's like you're on a terrorism watch list now or something. So easy to point the finger at him. We've had him on the channel a few times and interviewed him. You know, we're not here to support any of his beliefs, but we're here to hear him and glean any information that he's willing to provide. Doesn't hide any, doesn't try to lie about who he is, who he was. And I didn't feel like he was lying about it. But then again, who knows, you know? I'm suspicious of everybody. But yeah, my question is, can they put Brad Holder anywhere near the trails that day, or any of these folks, Elvis, Messer? Like, that's a whole handful of folks. And we didn't even know about that Richard Allen was there, or that Julian Powell was there, or the arguing couple. We were told by Anthony Greeno that it was one of the McCains was the flannel shirt guy. But yet, and we heard Becky Patty say, well, Derek ran into an older gentleman. There's no mention of this person in the affidavit. He's not in the timeline. So who is this guy? Maybe it's not McCain. Who is this older gentleman? Hopefully it wasn't Richard Allen. Shout out to Frank, Joey, Brown Skittle, and Sensei for sponsoring today's live stream. Appreciate it, guys. This is from Brad Holder, May 5th, 2017. Says, okay, I have a Facebook stalker that has accused me, my son, and is now, since my story checks out, accusing my friends of killing Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Notice he didn't give them capital letters. That always bothered me. My son was totally devastated and heartbroken that his girlfriend had been murdered. Besides their families, there is probably no one that wants to see their killer brought to justice more than I do. I doubt that. Maybe since you're pointing fingers, you are the one who did this, you sick fuck. My suggestions, and it looks like there's more, but he's feeling pissed off. So Patrick Westfall told us he took a polygraph and was interviewed for over, I can't remember, it was like 4 to 8 hours or something like that. So these guys were looked at pretty good. You hope. I mean, Brad Holder, we asked Patrick Westfall if he thought he could have done it. And he says, I don't know. I don't think so. So a bunch of Odinism stuff. I don't know if he has a scratch here or if he's drinking blood or something. It's very weird. See that? So we're going to be hearing a lot about this gentleman in the coming weeks and months. So you better get acquainted. Yeah, there's a lot sees through. But law enforcement are fully aware of JP. Nothing more we can do here. Thanks, Joey. And apparently this is not Brad Holder. Just kind of looks like him. Not long after the murders, doing my homework. And this kind of looks like the layout of the crime scene, right? It'd be 3 runes. Here he has 418-17. Maybe the runes would be 213-17. Have to take a look at that. Another Facebook post. This was the day after the murders, the day the girls were found. Ha 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 ha. Happy Valentine's Day, you fuckers. Oh, sorry. I think he was recently divorced as well. Okay, here's my words of inspiration for today. Today is Tears Day. I also drew the rune Tiwaz in Galaxy Runes. All this past weekend and the beginning of this week, I've been drawing runes that have to do with giving up the baggage in my life or cutting away the old. What I believe the gods are trying to tell me is sometimes in our lives we have to make sacrifices. Dun, dun, dun. And it hurts. Hopefully that doesn't include him killing his son's girlfriend. But like the gods made sacrifices to become who they were, so must we. Like a butterfly has to shed its cocoon to become that butterfly, so must we soldier through our hardships to become better. At what cost? At what cost? February 17th, 2018. Well, I started back acrylic. Hail Odin. And this is supposed to be representative of Odin. I think he hung upside down for 9 days or something like that. And a bind rune on her chest. Hell yeah. So the girl Amber, she has a huge tattoo of runes on her chest. So I don't know if he was referring to her or not, but they were together for a while. But that's going to do it, you guys, for today's live stream. We'll catch up on the chat, and then we are out of here. Hope you guys are having a safe and fun Friday. I like the scorpions. Yeah, we're probably going to do a series like this. The Devil's Advocate series. Maybe we'll interview some folks who believe Richard Allen is 100% innocent. We'll see what they have to say. So if you're interested in coming on my show and those are your opinions, we will be looking at giving you guys a platform over the next months and weeks here if you're interested. So just reach out to me at sleuthintuition@gmail.com. Let you get whatever you got to say out. Not too much interest, not really interested in a debate. That's not what I'm looking for. Maybe some healthy discussion is what we need right now. But the door is open. Zero Cool says, Patrick Westfall said Brad Holder doesn't have the heart to do something like that. Yeah, that was a strange comment. But I know that for folks like me, I'm walking on eggshells with stuff. Like when he said, oh, we were cutting the ends of the stick and we were making coins with runes on them. And then we put them in a leather pouch. Me being obsessed with that damn bridge guy video, you know, whatever that brown thing is coming down, you know, my antennas popped up. So everything, we're going over everything with a fine-tooth comb, so you can't mess up around us. Everything just seems strange, right? After the fact. Kind of like that image of Richard Allen sitting on his son-in-law's lap. Like if he wasn't a murder suspect, that could be hilarious or kind of silly, you know, or part of his personality. But when you look at that photo and you know that he's accused of killing 2 girls, it's kind of disturbing. It almost appears as if he's threatening his son-in-law. Like, yeah, I might look like an elf on a shelf, but you know what I'm capable of, type of thing. All righty, guys. If you could hit the thumbs up on the way out. Replay crew, let me know what you thought of today's live stream. Leave me a comment. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Shout out to everybody who caught the live stream and participated in the chat. And a special shout out to Frank, Joey, Brown Skittle, and Sensei. You guys rock. On that note, I'm out of here. Take care.